Welcome to Crushgasm, the podcast dedicated to the highs and lows of crushes. From their first to their worst, we're going to cover them all with a cascade of characters, including our guest today, a man just out there living his truth, Benjamin Carlton, an actor, activist, and traveling foodie who is here to talk not only about his book, I'm Black, I'm a Minister, and I'm Gay, but also his crush on a couple of mainstays from the 90s, Merlin Santana, and the standard when it comes to male models, always and forever, Tyson Beckford. Benjamin, how are you?
I am great. And thank you so much for having me on. It's so funny. Just saying those names brings back memories.
I know. I'm so excited to talk about your first crush. But first off, Benjamin, you noted that you grew up in what was quintessentially the hood. When it comes to mind, I think everyone can kind of imagine the kind of area you grew up in, especially in the 90s. And you said that was part of the reason coming out wasn't in the cards for you back then. Was that something you realized like at a very young age? You were like, let me hold off on this.
You know, at a very, very young age is when I discovered I needed to hide who I really was. You know, people have reasons why they explore the different realms on the spectrum of sexuality and all of that. You know, I came out of the womb gay. You know, when the doctor slapped me, I said, "Ooh, do it again." You know, no one taught me, nothing happened. And it wasn't until I was in kindergarten and I kissed one of my guy friends, you know, as normal, innocent 5-year-olds do, playing house. And all of the kids burst out with, "Ooh, you're nasty, you're gross, stop telling." And that I didn't know what I did and what made everybody gross out, because we had, you know, when we played house, girls would kiss guys. So, you know, I was kissing a guy. So I didn't know what I did wrong. And the more and more I started to receive rejection and criticism for my feminine ways, for liking boys and all that, I started to hide and mask myself.
So you were very young, kindergarten. Which, I mean,
Yeah.
You said you were born gay. I think that's how everyone is. Like, kind of,
Right.
You know, it's like not a choice or anything. It's just
Right.
who we are. It's in our cards. So we've done a couple episodes about crushes that were kind of, they sexually awoke our guests. It's kind of like we did a trans masculine person who their crush was Drew Barrymore, made them realize maybe I'm into women. Another one was he was going through puberty, saw Katana in Mortal Kombat. It awoke some things. And I wanted to know, you were exploring in kindergarten, so probably Merlin Santana, Tyson Beckford weren't who sexually awoke you, but do you have a crush that maybe in pop culture where you're like, they're cute, that's what I'm into?
Not anyone specifically. I mean, I always was into guys and would, you know, like TV, like, okay. I had a crush on Uncle Jesse from Full House.
Okay. I mean, when we're talking about 90s, Uncle Jesse is it. I think anyone who watched that show, gay, straight, whatever you identify was, knows Uncle Jesse was it.
Yes. I mean, when he sung, and I mean, it was just, I had a crush on Uncle Jesse. Of course, you know, being almost the same age as Usher, not too far away, had a crush on Usher, Brian McKnight, all like the R&B singers who would be, you know, on TV or late night on BET.
What was it, BET Uncut, where they got raunchy?
Yes. And you had to sneak and watch it.
Yeah, it was a wild one. I remember watching those. Well, let's get to these crushes, because we're going to start with Merlin Santana, which I was very excited to see this choice, because I think in the 90s, he's one of those crushes so many had, but I think we kind of forget about because he wasn't like someone you knew the name of like instantly. So I was really, really excited to see this as one of your picks. But I wanted to know how you came to know Merlin Santana. Was it like he was on an episode of Sister Sister? Was it Moesha? Was it the Steve Harvey show?
It was all of the above. I was a fan of all of those shows: Steve Harvey, Moesha, Sister Sister, and most of all the guys. And it wasn't until Marquise Houston like grew up that I had a crush on him. But all of those guys from those shows, I had a crush on. Q, I had a crush on from Moesha. It was all of the above.
Marquise, I remember when Roger did that flip. It like changed the world for us.
It was one season. Like he came back grown. I was like, wait, what happened?
I know.
How can I grow up that quickly over a summer?
I know. I had a friend in 4th, 5th grade, and she loved like IMAX and Mature. And I was just like, in my head, he was still Roger. So I was like, girl, you're crazy. And then I was like, oh, I get it. So Merlin played Ohaji on Moesha, one of the love interests, and Romeo from Steve Harvey. And Romeo was more of this like really cool guy. I think that's why we kind of all liked him. And I wanted to know, like, did that cool guy aesthetic translate to who you kind of crushed on when you went to school? Was that who you were into? You're like the popular boy.
Yes, I always was with the popular guy. And I didn't come out until 30. So I always was in either undercover, DL, or exploratory situationships. And so always was with and was attracted to the cool guy, the popular guy, the one who, attracted all the ladies. It was, he was it for me. He was smooth with his words. Even when he messed up, like his charm was able to, that's my problem right now. You charm me and I'm done.
Like,
all you gotta do is give me a smile and a wink and you got me. So that's my weakness.
And what a smile he had, right?
Yes.
Romeo, you mentioned Q. These, again, another really cool, smooth guy. And you mentioned you didn't come out until your 30s. And I was thinking, like, when you were, in the closet, as they say, especially like growing up, and you said that yourself, you took part in kind of like the gay bashing as just kind of, I think, a form of not being outed, trying to blend in. Do you think like the cool guy crushes also influenced how you acted like a cool guy, maybe?
Yes. I, wanted to be that GQ guy that, everybody liked. I wanted, to be the smooth talker. So all that definitely influenced the type of guy I wanted to become. Now, in order to mask being gay or feminine, I decided to pick up a geek and nerd persona. So I didn't reach the cool guy persona until college, but I was definitely, the nerd, the teacher's pet, the smart guy, and I chose that persona because I'd rather be teased and picked on for being a nerd than teased and picked on for being gay.
Okay. So you weren't more Ohaji Q, you were more like Mo's best friend.
Yes.
And I do want to mention Moesha again, because it was one of the few Black-centric shows back in the 90s to have any sort of gay character. It was just like one episode, though. The character was named Omar. Do you remember that episode at all?
Vaguely. They were trying to figure him out?
Yes, and I think Mo sort of outed him, and it was a lesson. Yeah. So, there was this really good article about, Black shows, Black culture not really embracing gay characters, even though the 90s are called like the gay 90s. It was really lacking. It was kind of just like Will and Grace and Ellen. That was towards the end. And Black shows didn't really have a lot of that. And as much as I love the 90s, all I can really think of is like RuPaul. But even then, RuPaul wasn't what he is today. RuPaul has like 75 shows on all year round now. So I wanted to know, do you remember like the first time you saw a queer Black person on TV?
The first time I saw a queer Black person on TV, I don't remember the first time. I do remember the movie Philadelphia, and they were dealing with AIDS and HIV. And that was, my first introduction to we, like you say, in the Black community, there wasn't much. All we had was terrible narratives about, the Black queer experience, which were far from the truth. And the characters that I would see were like exaggerated. Like, always to the extreme, very, very feminine, very, drag queen. And which is nothing wrong with folks who are living in that life and who choose to, or who are that, but that's all we saw. And so I don't remember the first character. I just remember people frowning upon the very feminine character, the drag queen, the cross-dresser, and I'm trying to think of like the first. I think it may have been either In Queer as Folk, or I cannot think of the name of the show, but it was a popular gay show with Black characters.
Noah's Ark?
Noah's Ark, yes. And I would see clips of that online, but I can't recall a gay character, Black character. I remember on the show West Wing when there was a group protesting against, gay people in the Bible, and the president in the show read them for filth, but I cannot recall the first gay character. Actually, I can recall when they would make a straight character play gay or cross-dress. And I remember Waldo cross-dressing on Family Matters.
Okay. All right. I think... No. There was Urkel never did that. They actually had
Urkel cross-dressed.
Was he
Myrtle Urkel was his character.
I was trying to think of, because in my head, I get that confused because I always thought Drew Carey was Mimi. So, and then I found out Mimi was a real person, and I was like, whoa. Yeah. So I'm trying to remember that. But do you think that lack of representation, especially in Black entertainment at the time, played a part in making you and possibly other Black LGBTQ youth think that you weren't normal in a way?
Absolutely. And when those characters were portrayed, it was for entertainment, and you made fun of them. Mm-hmm. They were the butt and brunt of the joke. And so you dare not explore your sexuality, your fluidity, your gender expression, because the characters that did were made fun of and were seen as annoying and seen as, unwanted. Murder O'Connell, nobody wanted her around. When Carl dressed as that, woman, he was going on a stakeout or something, and they were trying to teach him to switch and walk. He just looked terrible. And so it played a part on people's confidence.
And Carl from Family Matters, gay in real life.
Right.
Never knew. Now, I don't want to hate on the youth of today, but they really do not realize how great they have it when it comes to representation. It's come so far, even since the 90s. I mean, they have the natural hair movement, which would have been fantastic to see. When I was growing up, I hated my curly hair. The body policy movement, as a fat kid, that would have helped me a lot. And I'm sure LGBTQ for you would have helped. Now, do you think if you had entertainers like Frank Ocean and Lil Nas X, that your life would have been different as a kid?
Absolutely, without and beyond a shadow of a doubt, my life would have been different. Because my whole entire life, humans naturally try to find place and space that they belong. And so my whole life, I was just looking for somebody that was like me, that I could relate to, that I could, compare myself to, and could not find any of that in TV, in my life. And it wasn't until I, moved into church culture as a teenager that I found more and more queer teenagers. And so, my life would have absolutely been different. Representation matters. People can't become what they don't see. And so having a little Nas X be loud and proud and unapologetic is an absolute treasure to the world. And I support him 10,000%.
Me too. I am obsessed with him. And his marketing genius, the way he goes viral with every little move he does, perfection. Yes. And I want to know his workout routine.
Right. He just posted a picture today with his chest out.
I'm like, what is this guy eating? But anyway, queer or not, even just having Black people on TV was still something that was being normalized in the 90s. But thankfully, we did have shows like we mentioned, Moesha, Family Matters, Sister, Steve Harvey, which I think is why it was so heartbreaking, 20 some years ago when Merlin Santana's death, the news broke. Was that something that hit you hard as someone who crushed on him?
Absolutely. I was devastated. I couldn't understand. I would how and why did this happen? Who was responsible? And so, it was devastating.
Yeah. And I think at the time too, very young, it was hard to lose a celebrity you love. There was him, there was Left Eye. I remember Aaliyah. And it was just why is this happening?
Yeah. When Aaliyah died, my friends gathered on my porch and just sobbed. And I don't know if I was the moral compass of the neighborhood, but I wasn't even home when I got home, my friends were gathered on my porch waiting to tell me the news.
Oh my God.
So that we could all cry. It was a real big deal.
It was, even to this day. I mean, they just put her music on Spotify and it was like the biggest thing in the world.
Yes.
So we're going to go from a very negative thing to a very positive thing and move on to your other 90s crush, which is Tyson Beckford. And I don't want to
goodness.
I don't want to assume.
He could still get it today.
Yeah, I don't want to assume, but was it the Toni Braxton video?
I saw him in a magazine. I think he was for Tommy or Calvin or one of them. I think it was Tommy. And he had on, or it could have been Polo. Whatever one he had on these white underwear is the one I fell in love with and folded that page up and hid it in my book bag, in my books. Like I overloved Tyson Beckford.
And back in the 90s, like that's kind of all you had were like magazines, and maybe you'd catch them on maybe like MTV's House of Style. Like how are you learning about Tyson Beckford back in the day?
Yeah. It was magazines.
And you're a very well-dressed individual. Was that influenced by this crush at all?
Absolutely. You know, when you saw him, you knew that he was going to bring it every single time. And he has one of those infectious smiles as well. So he absolutely influenced a whole bunch with me.
Now, with you being a foodie and your 90s crushes being total snacks, I want you to do a little game. I want you to compare Merlin and Tyson to actual food. So which would each of them be?
Merlin would be a caramel sundae with a warm waffle cone, with all the great toppings, warm caramel, nuts, whipped cream, because he's fun. You just want to sit and have fun with him. Tyson is a little bit more sophisticated. Like he is a nice steak dinner. He's meaty. He is seasoned well. He is experienced. It is a party in your mouth, all pun intended, however you want to take it, when you bite into that steak.
You made them dinner and dessert. Love it.
Yes.
Okay, so now we've reached the end of our crush portion, and we always wrap this part up with a little make-believe. So if you could live out the rest of your days with Tyson Beckford, what do you think your lives would be like today? And I just have to say, this man is like 50, and he still looks as good as he did in that picture that you took out of the magazine.
Yes, still looks good. I think we would live out the rest of our days traveling the world, having fun, taking pictures, encouraging people to be free and be themselves, utilizing his platform just to free so many people, letting them know it's okay to be them. Because he is actually, I follow him. I've yet to meet him. I want to meet him. We were at the same party once, but I wasn't able to get to him. But he has fun. He loves to skinny dip. He loves to, explore himself. So I really, really think that we would live the rest of our days just traveling the world, having fun.
Want skinny dipping?
Yes.
Good imagery there.
Yes. I'm a fan. And I jump right in with them.
So now it's time to talk more about this amazing book you've written. So I'm Black, I'm a minister, and I'm gay. I get the Black and gay part, but I want to know, when did you get into ministry?
I jumped into ministry early on as a teenager. And I actually, I believe, I answered the call as a young person. I, in first grade, would, gather my friends in the backyard and play church. And we didn't come from a religious family where I would have learned this behavior. It was something that just was innate. And so I've always had goodwill in my heart since I was a kid. I was a safety in school, was always, part of some type of volunteer cleanup. But officially, I started doing ministry at a church as a teenager.
And you said that you sort of found more queer culture in the church. Was this a church that was more open that you found in your town?
No, it was still underground culture. I just found more Black teens like me who were Christian and gay, but it wasn't an open culture at all. We were very much secretive. Well,
religion and the LGBTQ community, there's always been a little butting of heads, and I think that makes a lot of people maybe hesitant to get into it. So
right.
What was for you? Was that something that you're like, maybe this isn't going to be for me? I don't know.
I was trying to find a tribe, a place to belong. And since I believed in God, I figured, hey, well, maybe my tribe is at a church. I did not know at that time, because again, I wasn't raised in church, that, the church was that hypocritical and that critical of the LGBTQ community. But I mean, I was already plugged in and couldn't really go anywhere, still trying to find hope and love and all of that. So yeah, that was my connection.
And you touch on religion, you touch on kind of having to learn about the LGBTQ community because you came out at 30. Like, what was something you learned about the community that, struck a chord with you and you've kept all these years? That's been important that you wish you knew maybe as a teen?
I wish I knew how many people were queer. I always felt alone. I always felt like, I was on this journey by myself, and I only knew about queer people from like negative stories and people being perverts and pedophiles, all these stories that people make up. That's all I knew. I just wish I knew more real live human beings who were queer. In addition to, I didn't learn this until 2017, that every 1,000 people born in the world are born intersex, meaning both genders. I had no idea. And it's like, well, how can you tell people they're not born this way when literally 1 in 1,000 people in the world are born both male and female?
Wow. Well, factoid there. I didn't know that. That's a lot, because there's a lot of people born every day.
Yeah, it's so many people. And yet, culture in different parts of the world treat it differently. Doctors and parents, sometimes doctors would make the decision, but this was like an early time, would make the decision for parents and not even tell them that, hey, your child was born both male and female. They did the surgery and, made them one gender or the other, or parents chose which gender that child was. But as the child grew older, their body started morphing into the opposite gender. And so, this happens more often than not. It's not talked about and addressed. But yes, like you said, 1 in 1,000 people born every day, born in the world, are born intersex, and it has a lot of people. Was
there any topic that you were maybe worried about diving into in your book, or were you like, no, it's either 100% in or not at all?
Yeah, a lot of the topics. One was, relationship with my parents and how truthful I wanted to be about our dynamic, and diving into, the sources of a lot of the narratives that we speak, and going all the way back to colonialism and white supremacy disrupting the order of the world, and how in indigenous communities, Native American, African, Indian, South American, all over the world, Australia, and indigenous spaces, they celebrated queer culture. They celebrated intersex. They celebrated two-spirit. They celebrated polyamory. They celebrated all these things. And colonialism came and just uprooted it all and said, nope, you're savages. This is how it's going to be. Accept our Eurocentric form of religion. I actually just heard this word yesterday. It was literally oppressive missionary work, where their intent was to go and spread God, but they went and spread our culture is the only culture, and everything you're doing is savagery.
What I just want to know, you are into ministry and you're so open, and I think a lot of people coming up are starting to embrace that you can love, your religion, but you can also have an open mind to people's lives and differences. Do you think we are gearing more towards that, and the more traditional ways are dying off?
Absolutely. Tradition is dying off because more and more people are getting access to information like we never had before. Even going back, as I talked about colonialism, Black African slaves only knew Christianity through the teaching of their slave masters. They can read, they were stripped from their culture. And so you literally had to depend on someone else for your knowledge and information. And that pattern followed time where people only knew the Bible based on what the pastor preached. Today, you get online and you're connected to information from all over the world. And people are like, okay, I'm not listening to this message anymore because it's hypocritical and you're lying. I just Googled this and it says this. And so the more and more we have access to information, the more and more I think people are becoming more spiritual and connecting to all the elements that, creation has to offer. Our spirituality, our vibrations, the elements of the earth, time and space. Like people are diving in and breaking away from tradition and age-old doctrine that governed the lives of people who quite honestly lived barbarically. And yes, the principle of love, I think, stands the test of time, but having a law that says if your child is disobedient, you can stone them in the head, the whole community can, that's barbaric. I don't think that's God. That's not love. And so people are getting away from these age-old doctrines.
Which is such a good thing because...
Yes, I love it. There's more and more young people at brunch on Sundays than at church.
Well, brunch has mimosas.
And no judgments. Come and act, and you get love, you get poured into, and you're ready for the week.
So on top of your book and ministry, what else keeps you busy in the community?
Well, I'm on the tour, Stand for Love, Elevating the Black Queer Experience. I do a lot of activism in the community. I'm actually, as soon as I'm done here, a Unity Fellowship, the late Archbishop Carl Beam started it in Los Angeles. And so they're having a day with youth and young people and talking about all types of topics, AIDS, STDs, protecting yourself, getting checked, parent and youth relationships. So I do a lot of community work. And then I travel, party, and have fun. I love to eat. I'm a foodie. I travel the world just for the food. And so I just enjoy life.
You mentioned like parent and children relationships. Can you like tell us really quick just how you think a parent should react when their child does come to them and they're like, well, like sometimes I'm like, a parent just should know. Maybe they just have an inkling. But when the child does approach them and come out to them, how should they react?
Well, one, I have an ebook called The Birds and the Bees and Everything in Between, How to Talk to Your Child About LGBTQ Issues. It's available on my site. But the first thing I say that parents should do is be loving and be accepting. Don't think for a moment about the issue, whatever the issue is, whether the child comes and says, I'm pregnant, I'm gay, I'm lesbian, I'm bisexual, I'm transgender, I'm in the wrong body, I don't want to be called he, I want to be called they, or I don't want to be called he, I want to be called she. Whatever it is, do not react to that. Your initial reaction should be that of love and acceptance and a safe response. Because when you do not create, when someone reveals something to you that is so sensitive and burdensome and vulnerable, if you reject that, they will never trust that space again. And so you need to create a space that is safe for them to share. And then eventually you can talk through it and talk through the things you don't understand and get clarity. But at that very moment, they should feel safe. You should be their safe space. You should be their peace. But any response that is rejected will literally disrupt the relationship, and it could be forever damaged.
I love that. I love the safe space. I don't have children, but I was always like, I honestly, as long as they're happy, it's not gonna be an issue with me, And right. I hope that as a parent, you want your kid to be able to come to you with anything in their life, right? Right. So can you tell people where they can not only find you online, but get a copy of I'm Black, I'm a Minister, and I'm Gay?
I love how you say that. I'm going to repeat that over and over online. I love how you say that. Yes, www.blacklovewins.com, blacklovewins.com. You can check me out there and all the other books I have. And on socials, Twitter, Instagram is at Ben Carlton, Ben Carlton. My middle name is actually Carlton. And I used to act like Carlton from Fresh Prince. Oh, I forgot. I had a huge crush on Will Smith from the Fresh Prince. I still have a crush on him now. But anyway, I used to act like Carlton from Fresh Prince. I could do the dance and everything and sing the song. It's not unusual. So yes, but I've been Carlton on the socials and blacklovewins.com.
I feel like Carlton I think he gets overshadowed as like a Black nerd because of Urkel, but he definitely deserves like top tier because that guy.
He was cooled down. He was preppy, take me to the tennis court, golf course. Like Carlton was cool. And there'll be no Will Smith without Carlton.
We needed that yin and yang,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I could talk about Will Smith all day, but Benjamin, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about your 90s crushes and all these amazing things you're doing and this book. And everyone, you can find all of Benjamin's information below. And until next time, keep crushing it.